I am Katina Horton, the Love and Freedom Toxic Relationship Recovery Coach. And today's Bible teaching is entitled Dealing with and Recovering from the DARVO Method. Once again, today's Bible teaching is entitled Dealing with and Recovering from the DARVO Method. And before I get into the Bible teaching, I just want to remind you that we do what? We use the A-tie-I method, right? That means we're wearing a tie so we can make an impact. And the easiest and quickest way for you to do that is to do what? To share the message, right? If you find anything in this message that's of value to you, if you could please hit that like button and then share it with someone else, another sister and brother in Christ, a member of the congregation, a family member, a co-worker, business, ministry partner, right, etc. And so without further ado, I'm going to get straight into the Bible teaching, right? And so what happens is that when it comes to the DARVO method, right, most people would think the individuals who are doing it are fully aware of what it is that is going on. And what I found to be the case is that, to be the situation really, is that that's not always the case, right? It's not always the case that the individual who's doing it is aware of what it is they are doing, right? And so that means that there is a strong lack of self-awareness that's involved, right? And some people would say, well, just give the person more understanding, have more compassion, be more gracious and more empathetic, right? Empathy, understanding, compassion, right? And gratitude does not equal giving someone a license to sin against you. It does not negate being severely injured. It does not negate needing recovery. It does not negate being sinned against. It's not a license for. DARVO is not a license, right, to do whatever it is you want to do because of looking at grace, compassion, empathy, etc., right? And even understanding, right? And so what happens is every blue moon, we might run up on a person who does the DARVO method on us, right? And what happens is if this is an every blue moon situation, that's one thing. But when this is repeated over time, it can cause some major problems for your mind, your body, your soul, and your spirit. Our souls, okay? The mind, body, soul, and spirit was not made, okay? It was not made to deal with this kind of turmoil on a daily basis. And just like the title of the book says, the body keeps the score. Our bodies were not created with the capacity of handling this type of trauma being packed in our bodies on a daily basis, right? On a weekly basis, on a bi-weekly basis, right? They were not created to consistently hold this type of turmoil and that it just keep going on and on and on, right? And so what's going to happen is when you keep having someone to do the DARVO method on you, you in turn are literally signing up, right, to have your mind, body, soul, and spirit to just break down and give out over time, right? And so what happens is the reason that this happens is that you are constantly going from the penthouse to the basement. 1 minute you and your narcissistic romantic partner is doing fine. You know, you in the penthouse, everything's going good. And the next minute is right back to the DARVO method, right? Every day or every other day, right? Or you might skip a week and it's back to the same old thing, right? This kind of turmoil on a regular basis, right? And you know, when you go from the penthouse to the basement and it's a pattern of that and there's trauma involved, the trauma bond and soul tie is for sure to follow, right? And 9 times out of 10, if he's gotten you to give away your blessing, which is your body, the soul tie is already there, right? And if you've given off too much information, I would say, right? In the beginning, when you met him, you've already created a trauma bond, right? So the DARVO method is only what? It's just reinforcing the trauma bond every single time that he pulls out that deck of cards, right? That trump card. I'm going to do the DARVO. Every single time the DARVO card is pulled out, Just think of it as reinforcing the trauma bond like gorilla glue, so to speak, right? And so DARVO is a common technique that's used by narcissists, right? But it's not exclusive to narcissists, right? Failure to deal with your unresolved trauma and being able to remove yourself from the scapegoat position leads you to becoming the toxic one yourself unknowingly. And this is where that self-awareness is so important. If we do not have self-awareness, we can constantly be going around using other people as what? A scapegoat. Another form of it, of saying that would be what? Emotional regulator, as a punching bag, right? As a poison container, as a dumping ground, all of the above, right? Like when you're taking a test and you check all of the above, when we don't resolve our trauma, we're signing up to do that and to think that it's other people's responsibility to do the work. And I'm not going to even lie to you and say that it's easy, because it's not. Dealing with traumatic events, dealing with unresolved trauma is hard work. Either way it goes, though, we're going to have to deal with pain. We're going to have to deal with the pain, right, of growing so that we can change, right? And of growing, of changing rather, so that we can grow rather, right? We're going to have to deal with that pain, or we're going to have to deal with the pain of not doing anything about it and not even being able to live the abundant life that Jesus promised us in John 10:10. It's our choice, right? And so either way it goes, it's going to be some type of pain involved, and the pain of knowing that we are continually bleeding out and hurting other people along the way. That's not a good feeling, right? And so what happens is DARVO takes place rather as a result of unresolved trauma, the inability to deal with the truth, and a refusal to be accountable for our actions, right? And when you have that viper spirit, think about the viper snakes. The real live viper snakes, they ambush all the time. They use a method that's entitled ambush foraging, right? And so every time DARVO is pulled out by a narcissistic individual, they are ambushing you, right? And the first few times that it's pulled out, it might shock you. Every time it's pulled out, first few times it's going to shock you, right? But then after that, you're going to know what to expect, right? After you know your narcissistic partner well, you will know, or any other narcissistic individual or individual who has not resolved whatever trauma that's going on. You're going to know, right? I mean, just like clockwork. Here we go. We right back here again. You're going to know just like that what's going to end up happening, right? And you can even predict, okay, first I'm going to say this, he or she is going to say that, then I'm going to say this, then he or she is going to attack me, and then it's going to turn around to them being the victim. You would know it. Boom, 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 boom. Like making a list of things, exactly what is going to happen, right? And so what happens is that DARVO is infused with shaming, blaming, defensiveness, projection, gaslighting, and deflection. It's all of the above, and baiting. I forgot to mention that. So DARVO is infused with all of that. I want to say it again. Shaming, blame shifting, projection, gaslighting, deflection, and baiting, right? All of that is inside of the DARVO method, so to speak, right? And so baiting may or may not occur every single time. A lot of times baiting is part of it. But like I said, DARVO can still occur without the baiting, right? Just by making statements instead of asking the questions and trying to see how you testing you so that, you know, so the person is just prepping to accuse you of something, right? There's no rhyme or reason if baiting will or will not occur. And if it does, it's going to be right at the beginning of attack mode, right? Meaning right after denial. Because DARVO stands for denial, right? Then you have attack, and then reverse, victim, and offender. Once again, denial, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. That's what DARVO stands for. And when you think of denial, denial means to take a strong stance against a person, place, thing, or idea by refusing to accept the truth. And in Matthew 26, 69 through 75, it says, meanwhile, Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a servant girl came up to him. You are also with Jesus the Galilean, she said. But he denied it before them all. I do not know what you are talking about. When Peter had gone out to the gateway, another servant girl saw him and said to the people there, this man was with Jesus of Nazareth. And again, he denied it with an oath. I do not know the man. After a little while, those standing nearby came up to Peter. Surely you are one of them, they said, for your accent gives you away. At that, he began to curse and swear to them, I do not know the man. And immediately a rooster crowed. Then Peter remembered the word that Jesus had spoken. Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. And he went outside and wept bitterly, right? And so what happens is, this was a situation where Peter was in this denial situation, right? Peter was not a narcissist. This is just an example of denial. How the denial phase will go of the DARVO attack, right? The next thing we have is attack, right? Remember, we're denial, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. So the next letter is the A, and that stands for attack. Attack means you're taking action against a person, place, thing, or idea, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, relationally, socially, financially, intellectually, etc. And you're using an ambush or any other aggressive means by which to do it, right? And then in scripture, it says, at that time, Jesus passed through the grain fields on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry and began to pick and eat some heads of grain. When the Pharisees saw this, they said to him, see, your disciples are doing what's not lawful to do on the Sabbath. He said to them, haven't you read what David did when he and those who were with him were hungry? How he entered the house of God, and they ate the bread of the presence, which is not lawful for him or for those with him to eat, but only for the priests. Or haven't you read in the law that on Sabbath days, the priests in the temples violate the Sabbath and are innocent? I tell you that something greater than the temple is here. If you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the innocent. So he's basically letting them know you condemning folks, right? You don't even understand what it is you're doing. And he said, for the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. Moving on from there, he entered their synagogue. There he saw a man who had a shriveled hand. And in order to accuse him, he asked them, is it lawful to heal on a Sabbath? He replied to them, who among you, if he had a sheep that fell into a pit on the Sabbath, wouldn't take hold of it and lift it out? A person is worth more than a sheep. So it is lawful to do what's good on the Sabbath. Then he told the man, stretch out your hand. So he stretched it out, and it was restored as good as the other. But the Pharisees went out and plotted against him how they might kill him. So what happened in this situation, it didn't go as planned. As the self-righteous cerebral narcissist or brood of vipers or viper, right? Or brood of vipers, right? Or the Pharisees with the Pharisee spirits, whatever you want to call them, right? Right? So what happened is, as they were, what happened, this plan did not go as they had intended, right? And so instead of them looking like the ones who knew it all, right, and who followed the rules, look at how moral they are, look at how much they know, they look like complete idiots, right? Because they focused more on the law than what was beneficial, what was ethically right, what was doing good when it comes to dealing with the people. And whenever we get to the point that law cancels out love, right? Instead of looking at grace and truth when we approach anything, whenever we do that, we look like the ones who are the fools. Like I said, they wanted the people to say, oh, look at how good they obey the laws. Look at how moral they are. Look at how virtuous they are. It was none of that. They looked like complete fools. And their only resolve, the only thing they could come up with as a result of this was like, what? Let's kill Jesus. The tension is now off of us and how good we are and on to him, and him being able to answer, right? and finagle his way out of our DARVO method, so to speak, right? The next part of the DARVO method is the reverse victim and offender. And in this situation, that's when you switch roles to win the conversation. And so the narcissistic person might do this in court or any conversation, right? Whenever and wherever and however they will do it. But they will always reverse the roles. So instead of you being the victim and them being the offender, they will reverse the roles where they become the victim and you become the offender, right? But like I said, at first you don't understand this because of the fact that you're right in it and you're thinking, I just need to keep defending myself. I just need to keep proving that I'm right. That's not going to do a hill of beans. It's not going to do any good, right? They don't care about whether you are right or wrong. It's all about winning it. And it's all about pulling out any trump card that's necessary to do it, right? And so a victim, the definition of a victim would be a person who has been wronged and or sinned against emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, relationally, socially, financially, intellectually, etc. And the offender is a person who sins against or wrongs another person emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, relationally, socially, financially, intellectually, and I forgot to put sexually as well. In Genesis 42 and 36, we have a perfect example of that reverse victim and offender when Jacob said, their father Jacob said to them, it's me that you make childless. Joseph is gone and Simeon is gone. Now you want to take Benjamin. Everything happens to me. Now, what he was saying was that, first of all, that was a lie saying that they were going to make him childless, right? Because if something had happened to Benjamin, he still had 10 other sons. But because he had showed such favoritism to Joseph and Benjamin, it was like the other 10 sons were no longer there, right? And he was right in saying Joseph is gone. He thought Joseph was dead because all of his brothers, came up with this plot. So he's thinking Joseph was gone. And then Simeon basically was held there in Egypt as ransom, so to speak, right? And so he thought, okay, Simeon's gone too. So now I'm going to send Benjamin and lose another child, right? And so what happened here is that what he said was the truth. However, when he said everything happens to me, he forgot about reaping what you sow, right? He had already tricked his brother Esau out of his birthright over a bowl of stew. Then he goes and steals the blessing from him, right? In a plot that his mother, Rebecca, had concocted on her own, and he goes along with it. So it becomes identity theft. But right now he's saying everything happens to me. So he's the victim. He's not done anything, right? To end up leading to this whole series of events and situations to occur. No, he didn't put a gun to his sons' heads and make them do that to Joseph. However, his behavior, right, and his action and inaction led to them doing what it was that they were doing. He showed favoritism to a son instead of treating all of his children in the same manner and showing love to all of them. Because Rachel was his favorite, right? Then Joseph and Benjamin became the favorites, right? Because they were by Rachel, the one he loved. And Leah, remember, was the one he hated. Back to DARVO. When it comes to DARVO becomes a defense tactic / coping mechanism that's filled with the gaslighting spirit. And basically it has a 5-for-1 special. It helps the perpetrator have power and control over you, right? Number 2, it helps them to be able to do whatever he or she wants to do to you without accountability. Number 3, it helps them to kill, steal, and destroy your mind, body, soul, and spirit, right? And identity over time. Number 4, it gives you the guilt and shame that belongs to the other person because they can't deal with it. Number 4 rather. Number 5 is that it fills you with the toxic venom that existed inside of that person and every other person that's sinned against that person who infused the DARVO method inside of you, if that makes sense, right? Through the viper spirit, okay? So let's get to the DARVO method. You will have an issue at hand. This issue that's been outlying. It's feel like it's been going on forever, right? So you go to your narcissistic partner, and that person, of course, that he denies what it is he's done, right? And he will state over and over and over again that it was not true. I didn't do it. Just like Peter, right? He'll state that over and over again. That wasn't me. I didn't do it. I don't know what you're talking about. You're just making up stuff over and over again. And so then you might decide, nah, it's not worth it. He's shaming me. He's belittling me. He's devaluing me. I'm setting a boundary and I'm ending the conversation right now, right? You stunned at what was said to you because you can't believe the conversation haven't been going that long, but still you stunned. But you're happy the conversation is over and you're moving on after setting the boundary. So you think, but it's not over. You think it's over, right? But it's not. So then all of a sudden, it's some quietness, it's peacefulness. You're doing your thing. He's doing his thing. And then your partner comes to you in this real subtle manner. And it's so subtle that you thought that everything was good. Now you guys can have a decent conversation, right? It seems like the questions are coming from a good place, right? But it's not. And the energy that his body is giving off is telling you that it's not. But the energy is not released until you give him the answer. This can sometimes happen, right? So he might say to you something like, well, what do you think happened to you with your father wounds? And then you get vulnerable and you answer. You might say, well, why would you answer that after what just happened? Remember, it was quietness. He's coming to you subtle. You're thinking he had a come to Jesus moment. You guys taking the time out was time for him to have this revelation. But it was not, but you don't know that. So you go ahead and answer, right? Because it seems like now you're on solid ground. And then you start to say something like, well, I think for years I held on to abandonment and rejection and low self-esteem to protect myself, etc. Every relationship I was in reflected that lens, and I'm trying to figure out how to get out of this toxic pattern of being in relationships with people who are bringing out the worst in me. So you share that with him, right? So what has happened is that he or she has gotten what it is that they want from you, for you to answer that question, right? And you don't know that you've opened yourself up to a major viper attack, major venom from the viper attack. You don't even know it. Everything you just told him or her in confidence, right? Along with not just told them, but from the past, is going to be used as a weapon against you, right? For what you've told them and what other people have said to them that they're projecting onto you. It's all about to be used as a weapon. So calmly and collectively, you bring it to their attention that they are taking what was said during vulnerable moments and using it loosely like a cannon. You're taking the time to explain it to them without attacking them. No attacking at all. No raising your voice. No huffing and puffing. You're nice and calm and cool and collective. You're explaining everything to them, right? You present the evidence like you're in the courtroom, but they're not having it. He or she is not having it. Attacking you with one huge bite of venom and then several small bites of venom continually, using your answer you just gave them and every other answer you've given them in confidence to completely tear you down during those vulnerable times, that is, in regards to your proclivities, insecurities, and trauma. He lets you have it. And then to top it all off, he proceeds to mention specific phrases you told him that your father said to you while he was abusing you as a child. Ending the conversation with, everybody's out to get me. And the only thing I try to do is just get up and work every day and be a good provider for you and the kids. And now my wife don't even want to be submissive to me and my role as the head of the household, And so as a Christian, this locks you in. Your soul has been injured and you're ready to fall down to the ground in soul grief and trauma, crying uncontrollably in front of him, right? Visibly crying uncontrollably or going to the bathroom or somewhere else, feeling like, or either you might even suppress it. You know it's coming on, but you don't want to do react in front of him. So you just break down later on or break down inside and your body is needing to release all of this, right? So then that's option number one for DARVO. Option number two is you have a discussion with your narcissistic partner about how his behavior has been towards you. And of course, he's denying it. He's denying it. He's denying it. Like Peter denied that he was ever with Jesus. Over and over again, he's denying it. Finally, you say something that's a Holy Spirit moment for you. You say, you know what, John? I really feel like everything that's going on with me and you was a transference of things. All of this anger and bitterness and resentment that you have for your mom. And unfortunately, I've gotten the brunt of that in our marriage. I really think that that's what's going on with us, right? And you say something like, I know you told me that she never protected you from your dad. And so what is John's response? All of a sudden, surprisingly, John levels out. At first, he was in defensive mode, denying. Then he levels out. And he said, yeah, Sheila, I really messed this one up. I guess I really messed this up. I guess this is all my fault. I should have taken care of my mother wounds. And I'm the main one who has caused this marriage to fail and to get to the point that it currently is. And then you like, praise the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. He's out of this tunnel vision and he has seen the light, right? That's what you're thinking. But what happens is that the come to Jesus moment does not last long because of his inability to deal with the emotions of shame, guilt, and the consequences of his behavior, namely emotional and verbal abuse towards you, right? About his infidelity and about the marriage in general, right? So John begins to bait you. And remember in Matthew 12, 9 through 14, it says, moving on from there, he entered their synagogue. Then he saw a man who had a shriveled hand. And in order to accuse him, he asked him, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? So this was baiting Jesus. And it says, he replied to them, who among you, if he had a sheep that fell into a pit on the Sabbath, wouldn't take hold of it and lift it out? A person is worth more than a sheep. So is it lawful to do good? What's good on the Sabbath? Then he told the man, stretch out your hand. So he stretched it out, and it was restored as good as the other. But the Pharisees went out and they plotted against him, how they might kill him. So back to the conversation that you had with your partner. The evidence is clear that it's about to happen because his countenance changes, his breathing increases, his facial expression shows you you're in trouble. John looks like he's literally ready for a fight, huffing and puffing and egging you on. So what kind of mother wounds you think you have? And then you start to think, like, okay, I don't feel good. This is not going good. So what kind of mother wounds do you have? And then you're thinking, okay, this is not good. And then you might say something, well, I don't know if I really have any mother wounds. I'll have to really think about and, kind of pray about that one and go into the spirit. But what kind of mother wounds do you have, though? This answer is not sufficient. Narcissists want to win at all costs. They cannot leave the conversation the way it is, especially just after opening up with that amount of vulnerability. Leaving them dealing with the emotions, that ain't going to happen, right? They are going to win at all costs, even if that means going into a full-blown viper attack. And that's exactly what happens. You think to yourself, oh, we're right back here again. He's right back attacking and denying again, just after admitting the majority of the relationship problems was his fault, right? So the question that you may have in your head is like, why did John admit his wrongdoing and then go right back to attacking you in the process instead of expounding on what led to that place? The answer to that question is in what I call in my coaching methodology, freedomology, is a limited world view. That's problem number one. John possesses a limited world view. And so the limited worldview is consisting of your wiring, your personality, your unresolved trauma, your false concepts about love, lies, limiting beliefs, your learned stress responses that distort your view of God, yourself, and others, right? Your norms, values, standards, priorities, toxic thinking, coping mechanism, conflict resolution styles, scarcity mindset, right? False doctrine, ideologies, philosophies, and twisted theology that creates confirmation biases about people, places, things, or ideas. I'm going to stop the message right here. And tomorrow I am going to do part 2. I want you to tune in to hear the rest of, right? Dealing with and recovering from the DARVO method part 2. And I want you to remember, you are enough. Reclaim your power, soul, and identity today. And then reclaim the power, soul, and identity of your calling. Grab your keys to the kingdom and get your inheritance. I love you. God bless you. And until next time.